Nasser, first of all, your reaction to the decision last night, that we learnt last night, to leave these two out of this tour to the West Indies.
There was a little bit of surprise. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about maybe one of them being left out, maybe not both. So it was a big call from Andrew Strauss. Listen, with any selection, it has to be short-term goals, which is to win the game in front of you, select the 11, the best 11, to win that specific game, which the next one will be Antigua for this England side. And obviously some long-term goals, change the balance of the attack, get in new people, change the culture maybe and the dynamic of the team, how are you going to win away from home. So you have to balance those two. Now, anyone who's watched England in the last couple of years thought that they would go down the short term, right, let's just win the next test match. They've won 1 out of their last 14. They lost 9 last year, and they were planning ahead and not looking down at the conditions in front of them. Andrew Strauss looks like he's taken the other approach, which is we've got Broad and Anderson around if you want, but we're going to have a long-term look at what life's going to be like after Broad and Anderson.
You mentioned culture, dynamic of the dressing room. Do you think there's such big characters that may have played a part in Strauss's decision, allowing others to thrive, including Joe Root, and putting his sort of seal on the captaincy, if you like?
Well, he said that wasn't the case today, but only Joe Root knows that, really. I'd be very disappointed if that was the case, because the whole point of captaincy and management is to be able to handle not difficult characters, but just characters that do it differently, and characters who are incredibly experienced, and characters who have a voice in that dressing room, and characters that may just be slightly different and don't mind speaking up. So that is part of being a captain. The last thing you want is having 10 yes men and yourself, 10 really nice guys, and you go out there and you keep losing test matches. The reason Anderson and Broad are great cricketers is that they push themselves and they push people around them to be brilliant. They don't settle for mediocrity. They don't settle for 30 for 3 and 20 for 4 every single time. They try and make sure, as Broad did this winter when he was asked about the bowling outfit, he said, well, there's not a lot we can do if we're constantly 5 down, for 80 or something. So I really hope this decision isn't about a captain that can't handle Broad and Anderson. And I hope it's what Strauss said it is, which is we're just looking to the future and making sure that when we go away from home, we can have an attack that's suitable for all conditions.
Yeah, Strauss emphasised it's not the end of the road for them, but could it be?
Well, that decision's now obviously in Broad and Anderson's hands. They're very proud cricketers. It's not easy at their age to suddenly have a massive gap. And I really feel for Broad and Anderson, I have to be honest. I think they deserved a little bit better. The toil and the pain and the sweat and the hours in the gym to get to where they are, to get back from fitness, both carrying injuries and got back to fitness. They know they've not got long left. They know it might be a matter of months, a year maybe, and they would want to play every cricket possible to make sure that they are there right at the end of the career saying, I got as much out of myself as I possibly could. They're 1,200 wickets almost now. They would have wanted to be pushing that. So I do feel for them, and they're proud men. They may say, okay, thank you very much. We'll go into other things. Who knows? But I hope this isn't the end, because I think they deserve better.
Yeah, do you think they will feel that? I mean, you know them quite well.
I don't know them that well, to be honest. Last time I was in a dressing room with Jimmy was about 20 years ago, and I've never shared a dressing room with Stuart Broad. I think, from what I've seen of them, they like to have a point to prove, the pair of them. I'd love to see them here next summer, and the skippers had to call them back in and chuck them that Duke's ball, because I know that Broad and Anderson, with a point to prove, are a real handful. Let's be honest, their stats in the last 2 years, if they were a dwindling force, then I would say, yep, time to move on. They are not. They are bowling as well as ever, and some opposition batsmen will be pleased that they're not on the team sheet. But having said that, it would have only been a matter of months or a year or whatever. And you have to look beyond Anderson and Broad at some stage, and Strauss has said we're going to do that in the next 3 test matches.
The other man who it looks like it could be the end of the road for in test cricket is Jos Buttler. What do you think in terms of that decision to leave him out and bring in Ben Foakes?
I think he's struggled of late. I think more than anything, mentally he's struggled with all formats, trying to adapt from one to the other. He's obviously been prolific in white ball cricket, and he's always trying to work out a way of red ball batting and the challenges of red ball batting, and that takes a lot of strain out of him, and that's reflected at times with his wicket keeping. So mentally he's looked drained, and in Ben Foakes, obviously they have arguably the best keeper, probably the best keeper in the country. So I think that's the right decision to make now. I wasn't that much anti the decision bringing Buttler in all those years ago, because the upside for Buttler was huge. If he could crack Test match cricket, you would have a wonderful cricketer on your hands. But unfortunately, he couldn't quite do it, and it is time to move on.
And in terms of Joe Root, he's going to move up to bat at 3. Is that the right decision for you?
It's an interesting one because 2 years ago I was calling for that, and some well-known judges around the world, better than me, like Ian Chappell and people like in Australia, Ricky Ponting, people like that, your best batters bat at 3, and you go in before the crisis. You know, you try and stop that crisis. Joe Root was constantly going in at a crisis at 20 for 2. I'd like him in there to stop the crisis at 15 for 1. But the problem is that Root has been prolific batting at 4. You know, the problem in Australia was not Anderson and Broad, and it wasn't Joe Root at 4. And they're the two major things that are changing for the next tour that's coming up. So Strauss is a very good man. He's reset things in the past, and he's got it right. Let's hope he's got this one right.